All right. Welcome to the Nottingham Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'd like to open tonight's public hearing on case 18005 VA, a continuation of an application from Peter Lozier and Joy V. Rydell, requesting a variance from Article 2, Section C1A of the Nottingham Zoning Ordinance to permit an addition, a large equipment storage shed, and ADU/garage on a private road. Property is located at 53 Whites Grove Road in Nottingham, identified as tax map 63, lot 81.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself as I'm in a butter.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So just so you know, Mr. Lozier, we still have a quorum. Sure. But you are entitled to a full board. It's your decision on whether or not you want to go ahead this evening, or you have up until we do a vote to change your mind.
Okay.
All right. So you'd like to proceed with your application?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Should I go through the rules since we have a large gathering this evening? All right, just so you guys know, Mr. Lozier, the applicant, will have a case, time to present his case. Any abutters, either for or against, have a chance to rebut, and then back and forth. All questions are through myself, the chair, and if we could, since this is a legal proceeding and we're taping and taking notes, if we could have one person speak at a time. But this isn't that big a crowd, I think we should be okay. All right, there you go, sir.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say.
Well, I guess you gotta lay out your plan of what it is you plan on doing.
Yep, so we're gonna enlarge the existing footprint to add a garage with an ADU above it and add a second floor to the house. And we're gonna put the other part of it is a garage for a boat and a Kubota tractor.
That's the separate
Correct.
storage shed.
Correct.
Okay. So what's the square footage of the house now? That's not shown on the...
Wow, that's a great question. It's by 26. It's, I don't know. I think it's about 1,500 square feet.
Okay. Because, I mean, based on the one scale drawing I have, I'm guessing you might have done this, it looks like the garage is as big as the house.
Yes.
Because there's no
It's as big
dimensions
as
on
house.
it.
Yeah, the existing house is 40 by 26 of the garage. It's a two-car garage with steps up to the ADU on the far side, and it's set at an angle, so it's got like a mudroom beside it.
Okay.
And this, I don't know if it matters, the reason we're doing this, we've moved to the property full-time. And it's one bathroom, it's just not a big enough house for what? For the family. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just not a big enough house for the family. We have my mother-in-law wants to move in with us. That was the idea for the ADU.
Excuse me,
Sure.
can I ask you to move the microphone
Oh,
closer?
sure.
So there are
Yep.
people at home watching, and
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah. So we want to make it a house that can accommodate our family is basically the idea behind the proposal.
I'm also not seeing on this plan, maybe it's on the other one, where the septic or the well is. It's not on that.
Yeah, it's on the original survey that's filed with the town. The well is at the beginning of the driveway.
So I took a ride out there.
Sure.
It's confusing as to what is the driveway, because it looks like you can come at it either from the right or the left branch.
Yeah, it's the,
It looked like the driveway that comes around behind the house. You have to take
That's
the
the one.
right-hand branch and wrap
correct,
tight down
correct,
around.
Correct.
So the well is
And
out
the well
there.
is actually, if you've driven to the property, it's the, there's a little doghouse right at the beginning of the driveway.
Okay,
That's where the well is.
Oh.
And the septic lies between, well, I should say it's a theoretical location on the survey, because I don't think anybody's really sure, but it lays roughly between the house and the existing shed.
okay. Kind of like in front of where you park the cars.
Yes, exactly, in front of where we park the cars, correct. And I know that it's a pipe and stone. Beyond that, I don't know. Our plan is actually to get, I've already spoken to the state septic inspector. He gave me a name of somebody and recommended that I call them and get a proposal for a replacement septic system if this system fails, which he says it may not, but I don't believe it. I think it's probably going to fail at some point because it's the original septic system. Doesn't have a vent. So the idea would be to put the septic exactly where it is, or where it supposedly is, but as a chamber system under the driveway.
And so currently it's how many bedroom?
4 bedrooms.
It's currently a
Well,
4-bed?
it's in the town as a 4-bedroom. We don't, the dining room was converted into a bedroom. It's now a dining room
So it's
again.
4-bedroom, 1 bath.
Correct. It's got a half bath upstairs, a quarter bath. Is a quarter bath just a toilet and a sink?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, that's a half bath.
Oh, it's a half bath, so it's a half bath.
And your proposal for the addition is to put 1 or 2 more bathrooms?
It would be to make the bathroom downstairs not have the tub, because there's no bedrooms, there would be no bedrooms downstairs, and to move those upstairs and put a master bath, and then a second bathroom, and then a bathroom for the ADU. It's still gonna be a 4-bedroom house, it's just gonna be a little more spread out.
Yes.
So, the 4 bedrooms, did that include the bedroom in the ADU? Or
Yes.
is that an extra one?
No, that would include it.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
there'd be 4 bedrooms upstairs.
the shed that's shown on, this is a sketch, right?
Correct.
The shed that's shown here,
The existing shed?
Yeah.
Yes,
so it looks teensy-weensy.
it is teensy-weensy. Well, it's,
It's not that tiny.
teensy-weensy on that?
Are these to
Oh,
scale or anything?
That's from the survey, I didn't draw that. I took a copy of the survey and added to it, so that was from the survey that was filed with the town. The shed is, the existing shed is, I'm trying to think, it's probably 12 by 20. But it is not a well-supported shed. You couldn't park a car in that shed.
No.
It's,
It looked like 3 little sheds put together.
yeah,
Or is that the neighbors?
No, that's us, but the secondary part is it a dollhouse? I don't know what, I think it was a a playhouse. That's not staying. That's scary would be the best word to describe that place. The whole floor's rotted out, we just have to rip it out. And we're not putting any of that back. That whole shed sits sort of precariously perched on rock pillars. And it's under the power lines, which is not really ideal. So I certainly would never make that shed bigger. I don't think that I can make that shed bigger to accommodate parking because it's under the power lines. I don't know that I'd go ripping it down right away, but that eventually may end up being ripped down, but it's there, so.
No, I'm guessing this other cluster of houses to the side that's marked as 27 feet off, is that the people who reside at number 82 or tax map 82? Is that a separate residence?
Is it off the corner of the garage?
Yeah,
So that's Deb and Craig's house.
because on the tax map, it looks like it holds the end of the chunk of land, and then on your expanded one, looks like your land's
surrounds?
like surrounds that person.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you're talking about the house that's beside us, that's behind the other houses.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's like a diamond
Yes, that
shape.
might, right, exactly. It's a punch out in the property. Sort of, right, so the land actually goes around it. It's kind of a bizarre
Yeah,
setup.
okay. Have you applied for the state for anything at all?
No.
Okay.
Is there something specific that you're thinking?
I would think so.
The septic will have to be applied,
Right.
but he's far enough away from the lake that he doesn't need to apply for.
Now, what I,
Yes.
for the septic, if I was gonna replace it,
You need to have it on file
okay,
with the state so that if your
I got
current
it.
system
That's it.
fails.
He said that, exactly. I knew that. You're right. I got it, yeah.
Because it looks like the house is maybe, based on the scale of what I do see here, about 40 feet back from the lake, maybe 50.
Oh, our house?
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, it's way back. 100 and something feet back from the
Oh,
lake.
is it? That
Oh,
lot's
yeah.
a lot deeper.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So is it possible for us to see the survey that he keeps referring to? Is that the town, Joanna?
Because the plan that you guys have in front of you is all I have received.
Okay.
Is the survey, the original survey I think I got, that came from the town? The one that the drawing is actually a copy of the survey that's,
Yeah, that's all we have. You got the file in front of you in case there's something different.
didn't I check with you, the number on the bottom, 5 something something, wasn't that the town, the one that was, we spoke on the phone?
Mr. Loser, these are the two things where we have. So when you're referring to,
Yeah, right, so this, I didn't actually draw all this. This had a 5 code on it that you and I spoke on. You said if it has a 5 code, it's 5 with the town.
Yeah,
And I read that.
the file with the state.
Oh, I'm sorry, mistake. I'm
But
confused.
yeah, so you and.
is this the one you're referring to
Yes,
always?
yes, I just didn't, the original of that is not included. I just blew it up to the portion that mattered.
Yeah. So that's the plan he's referring to.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
And I just did a rough, from the town website, our tax maps,
yeah.
a rough measurement of where his house is in reference to the lake, and it's over 200, roughly.
Back.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So have you talked to a builder yet at all?
I have.
And have they provided you with any details at all?
Not yet, not until I know that I can do it.
Okay.
The thing that I was specifically talking about is how do we do this with the existing house? And sadly, all of them have said the same thing. Would be much more expensive to try to readapt the existing house and add it on than it would be to take down the existing house and rebuild on the foundation, which is heartbreaking, but I think
So you're
that's
going to
probably
rip the house down and start all over?
Yeah,
Sure would be nice to see the plans.
Yeah.
okay.
We don't have any, this sketch here doesn't have any dimensions or anything on it that are,
But did I not give anything with dimensions?
I mean, didn't
for
you
the
add the
existing
garage
house?
on here? The
Yes.
garage doesn't exist, correct?
Correct, I added, that should be on the picture.
Right, it is on the picture, but it doesn't have any dimensions, and how can we know the setbacks are what they say, and so forth?
Well, the other thing is your variance application says addition. It doesn't say new build. It says in addition to the house, and then a large equipment and storage shed at ADU garage.
So would it be considered, even if we're leaving the existing foundation and septic system, is it,
My understanding of it was you were building an addition to your house.
Right,
That's what the variance says.
right.
And it would be
Right.
my understanding that the town would make you replace your septic, am I correct, Joanna?
The town is not making him replace the septic,
No?
no.
But,
You're required, if you're going to be doing an ADU and having more bedrooms onto the septic than what the septic was designed for, then you're required to have a plan for.
I understand that.
Yeah,
Right.
so we don't require to install a new one.
So the existing septic is a 4-bedroom design?
No. No,
No,
no.
we didn't, I didn't.
I think
It's
it's
not even a
unknown, but
septic, it's
the
probably
ta, I'm taxed, it's a 4-bedroom house. So I'm taxed as a 4-bedroom house. I
Right,
assume the
that's-
septic was,
So when he goes to
approved might
have
be a loose
a
term.
design for the new septic, his current septic will be evaluated to see if it can hold the load as well. Those are two criteria before he gets a building permit. But most people don't come to you ready to go on that until they get their variance, because it's null and void for them to have spent all that money and time, if you guys are gonna say no anyway. So this is their first step, then they go to the next step. They're not gonna go and get septic plans and stuff thrown up until you guys say go for it.
yeah, I've been told that's not real inexpensive to get those plans.
Right, it's
1,000,
not.
I don't know, $1,000. I was told, plan on
Hey,
$1,000.
ask him.
Oh, is there somebody who's a septic?
Yeah.
Wonder if that's the name I was.
But as far as a build, so you're building on the same footprint and then of your old one, because you're using the old foundation,
Correct.
but your permit didn't explain it that way, which is why the variance application is saying addition. So his
Okay.
building permit was denied based on an addition, and that's why this is proposed to you as an addition and a garage and a large equipment shed.
But that's not what it is.
Because he's not expanding his footprint of the original house, that's why it was written that way.
He's still rebuilding it. So it's
Correct,
not
but
an addition.
it wasn't written that way, which is why it was filed the way it was.
Well, and then Bonnie, it also says here, though, that improvement or replacing of existing habitual building and the footprint remains the same.
But the
That
footprint's not
Footprint doesn't
remaining
remain the
same.
same. He's got a garage stuck on it and an ADU. It's enlarged quite considerably.
But the house you're replacing is gonna be the same size.
Exactly,
I'm
and that's
not
the
moving,
habitual.
I'm not
habitable
moving the
part.
house.
Right, that's
The
gonna be the
ADU's
same
in the
size.
garage.
But the ADU and the garage is separate on here anyway. It's listed off as a separate piece. The house, a new build, doesn't actually have to be on, when the footprint of that is
The
not changing.
existing house is a single story, or it's
It's
single story
It's a
with
cape
a cape, yeah.
with a second floor, but it's in the pitched roof.
Right.
So that's still a second story, two-story. If they have you have a second floor to it, there's
Yes. Oh,
bedrooms
yeah.
up there
Oh,
already.
staircase, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a
And you're
two,
proposing to build a full second floor.
Correct.
but it will be the same size.
Yes.
So then he wouldn't in this part.
A few
You
years ago.
could have had a building-
I replaced a shed on my property, and I was allowed to rebuild it in the same footprint, which I did do. If I had added 1 square foot to it, I would have had to come before the board and gone through a completely different procedure.
Right, and what I'm saying here is that the building inspector could have issued a building permit for the rebuild of the house because it's going to be the same footprint.
Right. That's
We're
what,
only looking at
that's what
this
it
today.
allows.
We're only looking at this because he's on a private road. That's the only reason we're
And
looking
he's
at
expanding,
We'd expand it.
times 2,
And
a
so
garage
like-
and a garage.
He's expanding in that he's building a garage and a shed. But not, we don't really need to look at the house part of it itself because that would be covered under building permit.
I see your look, but I don't agree with you.
Okay?
Well, it says, I mean, this is in Russ's letter, I mean, he said that, you know, if he could build in the same footprint, so he would,
But
under
this
that,
needs
he
to be
wouldn't have had to come here. He only has to come here because he wants an additional new building.
He wants to expand his existing building and build an equipment
Well, he's not,
storage shed. Well, I mean, the plan's before me, I'm not even sure how much square footage is the original house and how much is
We don't know.
the addition.
I think we need to ask the plans be done properly, which might mean you need to
Right, but we're-
decide on that.
we're just given a variance. I mean, the building inspector would do all the rest of the stuff, I mean, the plans and we're just trying to give, he just is asking us for a variance to do this. And it's the building inspector who would do all the, you know, make sure all the requirements were met. So,
So one of the major concerns we have with any improvements around the lake is is your impervious cover
Yeah,
and your rainwater.
distribute, yeah,
So,
runoff.
any thoughts on what you planned on doing with the rainwater?
Whatever the town recommends that I do. Yeah, I'm not,
Usually, we ask that,
yeah,
when you're this close to the lake, usually what we ask is that you follow low-impact development guidelines, and that would be gutters and a cistern. Just to
to
slow
collect the
down,
water.
to
and
collect the
slow-
water, slow its infiltration down, so you don't get that.
I mean, that's certainly, I think for any of us, that's certainly a concern for us too. Right now, today, I've got a river going down past my house into the beach.
Right.
And I'll end up tomorrow with a gully this deep in the beach. Happens every time. So if I can solve that problem, I will do everything I can to solve that problem. Because that, for us, is, clearly detrimental. I think I've had conversations with neighbors about water collection in the road, trying to avoid that problem. We've made some changes that have helped some, but it's still an issue.
Any other questions from the board?
I have one other question.
Certainly.
So in your deed, it seems that you are restricted to one residence,
Correct,
and you're asking for a second residence in the ADU.
correct.
So what, is that part of what you're asking for?
This is,
Joanna,
I got this actually from Russ, according to, and take this with a grain of salt, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the state of New Hampshire passed a law last year that allows anybody to do that, deed or not. I think we're all allowed
Anybody to what?
to add an ADU, regardless of, I don't know, this was according to Russ.
You're saying it supersedes this deed restriction,
For a,
which is a private
for a,
restriction.
this is not a separate residence. It's an,
It
it's
doesn't
an
say
addition.
separate, it says one residence only.
Right,
On
it's
the- in the
it's
deed.
still one residence.
No, it's two if you put an ADU in.
I do not believe that's true according to the rules of an ADU. An ADU is not an individual residence.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
That, a person who lives in an ADU can come into the town, for example, the election people, I happen to be the town moderator, so I run
Okay.
the elections. And they can register to vote because they live in your ADU. They must be a resident to register to vote.
Okay,
And so that is a residence.
okay. So if
Your
I
deed says
can't-
you're not allowed the residence, and, I don't know what the,
And the town, I don't know, is
Yeah.
gonna enforce the deed, but
No, but if that were an issue, the label ADU, I could certainly take, I actually had no knowledge of ADUs until Russ was the one who made all those suggestions to me. I'm not sure what the advantage was to that, maybe, I don't know, but he was the one who said, keep it this size, it's gotta be under X. But for us, we really just need a 4-bedroom house. If it couldn't be an ADU, I have no problem with it not being labeled as an ADU. That really, for my purposes, makes no difference to me.
So
This
the
is not a
ADU
property I'm looking to sell. This is a property I'm looking to live in. Having my mother-in-law there, having her labeled as an ADU doesn't really matter to me. I don't know if that makes sense.
no, it does. So then you wouldn't put a separate kitchen in that apartment. So once it gets a kitchen and its own bathroom, then it becomes
It's
an
an
ADU
ADU, oh, okay.
or an apartment.
or an apartment.
Or an apartment,
Either of which I believe are residences.
okay.
Once
Right,
you-
if it was a bedroom and a entertainment room or a
Yeah, so I'd have to
storage
check.
or
I certainly would prefer to do that, but if I legally couldn't do that, then no, we wouldn't do that. We would only do what we could do. I'm not sure how to answer that question. I guess I have to.
Well, it's not a trick question.
Was the ADU gonna be above the garage?
Correct,
Okay, so
correct.
what, if you are not going to do the ADU, then where is your mother-in-law gonna go?
Oh, no, we would still do the space. We would still do this, we would still do the same, we would do everything the same. We just, I don't know if we could put the kitchen, that's the question, but she would still live in the bedroom above the, we still want to do the bedroom above the garage because we need 4 bedrooms.
So there's 4 bedrooms within the house for you, and your family, and then your mother-in-law is above the garage?
Say, that's one of the 4 bedrooms.
Oh, that's one of the four.
Correct.
Oh,
Because our septic system is only a 4-bedroom septic.
But it isn't a 4-bedroom septic. I thought you said it was kind of unknown.
Well, it's right
There are 4
now.
bedrooms in your house now.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Right. I don't really know anything about the septic, but
Exactly.
it's working, I guess. That's all I know.
Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak?
If I might, Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Jim Schulte. I'm an attorney from Dover, and I'm representing Peggy Wyman. Sorry.
Peggy Wyman?
Wiseman.
Wiseman, did you get that from me? She's, you gotta be
Watch
careful
out for that big yellow thing.
It's supposed to keep you from tripping on the wires, but
It makes me
it
trip
gets a
every
lot of
time.
people. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the plan from which the applicant's sketch was developed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the plan.
And it's a subdivision plan from 2002. It may answer some of your questions because it helps lay out. It shows how the original house was oriented on the property and that shed that you were talking about. Our concerns have to do primarily with safety and impact on the neighborhood. One of the safety questions is brought up by the letter from the fire chief, where he points out that it's a problem for the, what's variously known as White Grove Road, or the Shore Road, or the Lower Shore Road, or the Camp Road, because all of these properties, including Mr. Loza's property, are described as being abutted by the Camp Road. His deed, which is also in your packet, contains descriptions for 2 separate parcels. The first one is the waterfront piece, which starts at the Shore Road, runs a certain distance along it, and then to the lake. The second one starts in the lower left-hand corner, where what is identified on the plan as Whites Grove Road separates from the Camp Road or the Lower Shore Road. And then their description runs along both of those roads, so their property is bounded by those roads. So when the plan on the lake side shows what is identified here as the gravel drive, it's probably not accurate, because since the land is described as being bounded by the road, probably the road lies between this lot and the lots that are actually lakefront lots. It's not gonna make a big difference because your setback requirements are as liberal as they are for this size project. But if you were to, if you compare this plan, which is the original, to what was presented to you, one of the major differences is that when Dr. Loza marked up the recorded plan, he erased a portion of the road. And that creates the problem identified in the fire chief's memo. Because what was a connected road, granted it's a narrow dirt road, but what was a connected road which ran all the way past the Vigors property and then reconnects. Now there are big rocks on both sides, and in the last couple of years, lawn's been developed, so you can no longer drive all the way through, which is a safety problem, because if either of those last 2 or 3 houses had a medical emergency and the ambulance was the first one to show up, and then a police or fire truck came in behind it, there'd be no way for the ambulance to get back out. Or if, like during the storms we had earlier today, a tree fell down and blocked the road down near where the intersection is with White's Grove Road, or in the deed is referred to as Rocky Cove Road. Again, there's no way out. And so one of our concerns is that that road which has been erased on the plan that was given to you and which has been blocked off needs to be reinstated to address the safety issues raised by the fire chief and the major concern for my client, so that my client isn't really opposed to having this house converted from a 1.5-story into a 2-story building, or adding an ADU, or even providing place for parking. We have 2 major concerns. One is there's a real safety concern about that having been made a dead-end road by this applicant. And so if you're going to grant a variance to allow this use, a condition of that variance should be that he reinstall the roadway there so that there's safe access. Primary concern of your ordinance is that the ordinance exists to regulate the use of land and promote public health and safety. And it's within your purview to insist that that safety measure be reinstated.
So, which house are you guys?
72, I believe.
It shows on the plan as being Lot 71,
Okay.
Terry and Margaret Wiesman.
Yep,
It's now-
there it is, yeah.
Right. Okay. And right about where the Moran property line is, it's now McLaughlin. There are boulders there, and there are boulders on the other side, and you can see where they were taken out because this plan basically erased them. The second issue that we have is, well, I have 2 other questions. One is, it's not clear to me exactly what the variance is being requested. I mean, clearly there wants to be an expansion of the footprint of their existing house. Understanding that the whole house is going to be replaced, if that can be done without action by this board, as long as it's within the confines of the foundation. But they're looking to put on a garage, which is actually a fair amount bigger than the current house itself. To the extent that this is scaled at all, it looks like the portion of the garage on the side away from the lake is probably at least 50 feet long.
38.
Because the house is 40 feet. And the garage, this plan is also a little misleading, because when you look at the original plan, the bigger one I just gave you, you can see where the existing end of that house is. But this plan for the garages, it shows the house being extended sideways and then coming in at an angle. So you've got some distance there, which looks to be like 8 or 10 feet. And then you've got a 38-foot garage, which is probably 3 cars, maybe 4. But it ends up being about 40 feet closer to my client's property. So you've got a house that's being doubled in size because you go from basically 50% use on the second floor of a cape to 100% use. You've got a garage which is at least as big, maybe bigger than the house. And you're adding a 24 by 24 foot storage building for large equipment, which seems to be a whole nother use. I would not think that in this zone you could have a commercial use of storing large equipment. But, so what our concern is that that big garage really is in the wrong spot. It's too big. When the whole thing is done, it's gonna overwhelm the rest of the neighborhood. You've got, it's a typical lake development. You've got relatively small lots, relatively small homes. This house is gonna be by far the biggest in the neighborhood. And when you add in another 600 square foot building for storage, if they need that much parking, then put that garage over where the storage shed is gonna be. If you can put a storage shed over there, you can put a garage over there. And if they need an ADU, then they can put the ADU there. And if they need a variance because the ADU isn't connected to the house, then you just amend the application and you grant a variance for that. But our concerns are primarily those two things, that the road needs to be fixed, reinstated. It should never have been interrupted. Probably because this property was laid out by the Whites in the 30s and 40s, and they created that road. Probably because of the public use there, that's probably actually a Class 6 road, even though the plan identifies it as a driveway.
It's a private road.
Okay.
We don't classify them, I don't think.
Okay. In any event, it's, people have a right of access here, and it shouldn't have been blocked off, and it's a safety hazard. And if the garage was moved away from the house over to the other side, the southerly side of the property, to the vicinity of where that storage shed is, then our concerns are satisfied. It does seem to me that, I guess, two other things. Understand that it makes sense not to go and get the septic system evaluated until you know whether or not you can do something there. But there ought to be some level of detail presented to you so that you know actually how big it is that you are approving this.
I agree with you.
Because you really can't judge the impact on the neighborhood until you know what's going to be there. And you don't have nearly the information necessary to do that at this point. The other issue is what Bonnie McKinnon raised, which is that there is a deed restriction, which is a private restriction. It may not be a town concern. And even though the legislature has decreed that what houses previously zoned for single-family homes are allowed to have an ADU, that doesn't override private restrictions which say you can only have one residence on the property. So that's a concern that probably this applicant needs to get resolved as to whether or not anyone can enforce that restriction, because even if you granted a variance for an ADU, he would not be allowed to do that if it violates these private restrictions that the statute has nothing to do with. I don't know if you have a copy of the tax card, if that would help you, because it has measurements on it and dimensions.
Well, I personally like it when people show up here with actual drawings that are done by somebody that knows how to make them.
But they don't have to for the ZBA. It's not a requirement for us. It is for the planning board, but it is not for the ZBA.
Doesn't mean we can't require it in this kind of a situation, where we have a very congested neighborhood, we have a lake to consider.
It would be
And
good
we
if
have
the
we have a sketch that is.
Bonnie, it would be good if the applicant had the dimensions, but he doesn't need to have a full landscape, what do you want to call it there?
I'm not asking for.
Engineered.
Design.
Engineered
I'm not
design.
saying that. There are various types of plans, and this is the level, the lowest level. And it doesn't have enough detail on it for us to really know what he's doing there. And Attorney Schulte did point out that the original house looks a lot different than this drawing.
Well, he was trying to give you an idea of what he's looking to do on this. This is, am I right?
But
I
would
don't
like
mean
a
to make
better
an
picture,
assumption.
I guess is what I'm saying.
But it's foolish to ask an applicant to spend thousands of dollars on an engineered plan if we're not going to approve it. That's why they don't have
It's
to
kind of a
have it.
catch-22, isn't it?
But that's why we don't have, require it for this board. They can come in with a pencil drawing on a piece of paper, and as long as you know the dimensions of what you're putting in,
Do you see any dimensions here?
but we've been asking him for that, and that would be very helpful, and if you've got those, please give them. But other than that, ours is the first step for them. We're not supposed, this isn't supposed to be spend thousands of dollars and we'll come in and have us say no. If we say yes and he goes before the planning board,
He has a
they're
better
gonna
chance of getting what
expect-
he wants if he gives us a little more detail. This is just really no detail.
Yeah.
And it's a little disturbing when you compare it to this.
I'm not suggesting that he needs to have engineering plans,
Me either.
but if he has enough
Builder can do it.
information to be able to measure setbacks to property lines on the ground, then he ought to have an idea what it is he's building. And you're entitled to know that.
I agree with you on that, that knowing boundary setbacks and the size of the home and the garage would be helpful, but what I'm saying is we should not have to have engineered plans.
I didn't ask for engineered plans, so you're making
I
it.
do have plans with all the dimensions. My understanding was.
Are they on the lot? Do you have it with the lot around the house? The footprint of the
I
house?
have it with a lot around now.
Do you just have house plans, or do you have, what I'm looking for is a more detailed sketch of your lot and what you're proposing, so that we can see either, you know, you might need somebody with a transit to go out there and figure out what the setbacks are and if you meet them.
I'm just telling you what I was told. I was told all I needed to do was measure the setbacks, go out, measure the setbacks, and put it on the drawing. That's what I was told, so I certainly can give you more. But the reason the drawing is limited is because that's what I was told to produce. So I produced, they said, give us a rough idea of what's there, measure the setbacks from any property line, and to ensure that those setbacks are big enough. So I went out with a 100-foot expandable tape measure, I measured it all out, and I measured the setbacks. And that's just to make sure, I wanted to be sure that I wasn't, and I actually, they're larger than even what's there, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't encroaching on any neighbors.
I think if you have a good builder, they can do that for you. Most of them have a transit, they have to site buildings on lots all the time. It's not rocket science, and it doesn't require a
I have
big
not
engineering
I've
force.
had them come out and plot it out and pay them, I just haven't done it. Because if I can't do it, I mean, for that exact reason, and I don't want to.
You still pay money to come to this board, so you want to make the best presentation that you can to us, so that we can make a reasonable
See
decision.
if he brings it.
And I don't see that we can make a decision with this.
I just produced what I was told to produce. I called a lot of times to make sure that I was getting everything we needed. So certainly, I mean, I'm capable of getting more. I just didn't realize I had to. I was supplied. I was told that I needed to supply.
And to be clear, if he wants to put a 40-foot wide garage somewhere on his lot, as long as it's on the other side of the lot, up where it says White Grove Road, near where that equipment shed is going to be, then we don't have a problem with that. But where it's located, that size, that close to our property, we think it will have an adverse impact on property values. And he's got the burden of proving that it doesn't.
Right, if it's within the setbacks, then he has the right to put it there. But if it's not within the setbacks, then he would have to, unless we could grant a variance,
It's a
it'd have
separate
to be
question.
moved.
No, but not,
Value.
I beg to disagree with that, because he can't put it in the setbacks unless there's a variance. And one of the conditions of granting a variance, one of the things he has to prove is that putting a structure that size will not adversely affect the property values of his neighbors. So even if this was on a public road, you're absolutely right, he could put it anywhere he wanted to within the setbacks. But this is a variance case, and he has to prove to you and bring in evidence to prove to you that that won't adversely affect the property values. We don't have to prove that. He does, and he's provided no evidence of that. There's nothing here.
Or
There's
the
not a
other
realtor's
footprint.
statement, there's not an appraiser's statement. What you have is his statement saying, we're gonna make the house look better, so we don't think it's gonna have an adverse impact on the neighbors. So,
Well, one of your things, you made it sound, you know, he's gonna build this big house on this lot, but, I mean, his lot's big. I mean, it's like acre and a half, plus he
Sure.
has that other little piece. I mean, his lot is bigger than probably those first 5 lots in front of him. So, I mean,
sure.
he
Sure.
should be able to build something of reasonable size on his own land. I mean, he has quite a bit of land.
We don't disagree with that. We're just asking that he place, I mean, even at the acre and a half, it's less than what your zoning requires. But I meant what I said before. If he wants to put that bigger garage, even a bigger garage, somewhere where it doesn't impact my client's property, then Godspeed. The concern is that it's gonna be that big and that close, and it doesn't need to be. It could be somewhere else on the property. It may be a little less convenient to him.
So, never mind, I won't say what I was gonna say.
So,
Do we have a statement from the fire chief? I don't see that in our file.
I know he made one.
Is it in the,
it was passed out tonight.
I don't recall getting one.
What?
Is that,
Yeah, that was
is
in
that
the
from this case? Ah,
You did refer
that's not from this case.
You did refer to this case as well as a couple others.
No.
Okay.
Could you read it out loud, Mike, so that we can all hear it?
Certainly, 18 June of 2018, serial number 2018-086, to Christopher Sterndale, Town Administrator, subject, Nottingham Fire Rescue Department, comments on Moores Road, Shore Drive, and White's Grove. Per your request, a tour of subject private roads was conducted by the undersigned on 15 June 2018. Moores, Shore, and White's Grove have significant issues with road width. 2 pieces of emergency apparatus cannot pass due to roadway width. Any vehicle parked in roadway will make access impossible. Police Department does not enforce parking rules due to the private classification of these roads. A second major concern is the one-way in, one-way out, dead-end conditions on these private roads. For record purposes, this is the first time since I became fire chief in 2007. Official fire department input on these private roads was requested. As fire chief, I cannot support any building on private roads until town develops a comprehensive strategy for existing safety issues. If you have any questions regarding this correspondence, please contact the undersigned, J. Joseph Vilchuk, Chief, Nottingham Fire.
Wouldn't that mean then that the owner of the road would need to upgrade it and make it more passable, which would be White's Grove or those
Well,
people?
a private road is belongs to all the people who live on it.
Oh, that depends on how it's deeded out, right?
Right.
And the,
So, I mean, I know personally that I drove down there in my 3/4 ton pickup, and I had to do a K-turn just to get into Mr. Lozier's driveway.
yes.
I can barely pass with a 3/4 ton pickup down there.
And you could not get there from the other direction
No, it's
because,
blocked off.
because he blocked it off. It was not a dead-end road until he blocked it.
Can I ask you a question? If the road were restored, the right-of-way were restored as a right-of-way,
Yes,
would that make that circular?
yes.
So it would be easier to get in and out?
It's shown on the
It's been that way
plan.
for years.
The big
Right.
plan shows it as being circular.
I know, but you also commented that some of this driveway is not accurate, so I didn't know if the road at that point had been,
Well, no, he
the-
noted that on this plan, right, this is shown as a gravel drive in front of Lozier's house, and on this one, it's stopped.
Right.
It's edited.
And it
about this
also
one?
shows the
Stuff.
Right
boundary.
here. See, these are the same drawing. This one's just enlarged and.
see
and
the
it-
fork?
You should tell him
Where's
where
the fork on that
where
one?
the
He took
markings
this,
are.
Oh,
He's.
and he took that
has-
himself.
Yeah, both of them.
Yes.
They go across his property, that's why, right?
They go across everybody's property, the right of way. But everybody has the right to use it.
That's not correct.
What's not correct?
I mean, they've got a lot of things. Should I address all the concerns? Or-
No, just what you were just what you were trying to correct in what I said, which was that the right of way goes across everybody's property.
So, just to give you the background story, yes, the road used to go in front of our house. I'm sorry, yes, the driveway used to go in front of our house. One part of that driveway is 5 feet from the corner of our house. The reason this driveway got blocked off, I'll give you a very simple story. We were having a party, a soccer party with young children. We have to cross that driveway, and we did have to cross that driveway to go to water. Because of safety, I put caution tape across both sides because I was worried that somebody might drive as kids are walking past that 5-foot corner and would get hit. The neighbor who lives, and I don't know her name, between your house and Nan's house, went about 40 miles per hour through both caution tapes, right past kids who were standing there. That day the rocks went in, I will fight tooth and nail. I called the town and had a very long conversation with the town, and I was reassured that, and Joanne, the reason I'm looking at Joanne is she was there for this conversation. That entire driveway is on my property, according to the survey and according to the town. My intention was never to make it difficult for my neighbors and never to create a safety issue. I've tried to do some due diligence to make the far side.
Talk to us.
Well, I did talk to John, I'm sorry, but I didn't know you at that point. I didn't realize you were an owner. I didn't even know you guys owned the house.
Created safety problems for 60 White Grove Road as well. Like a woman with 3 children, she can't get out sometimes in the winter.
Right, but the one at the far end of that road used to be relatively inaccessible except during summer because it was straight down. I've made that now, tried to angle it, and Peter and I have talked, and I'm trying to make that a very accessible entry to those houses. And he's brought up some concerns which are legitimate, and I've talked about those. But
Is this access to lots 74 and 75?
there's 3.
Yeah, what's in-
I'm not sure what the lot, but four lots, four driveways altogether, mine and 3 others. So I'm on that second part of the driveway, so certainly I want it accessible from the standpoint of the vehicle. But thus far, I've had no problems. I had Energy North Propane come in with a crane truck to deliver our propane tank without any problems. So I had a concrete truck come in, no problems. So I've not had those issues with anyone getting around, but if I can make it more accessible, I certainly want to make it more accessible. But I will not, I mean, opening that road in front creates a clear danger to people living in the house that when that road is 5 feet from the corner of our property.
Thank you. I would like to ask Attorney Schultz if he's reviewed the history of the right-of-way, and if what he's saying is correct.
Can I ask you
I know that
something?
rights-of-way cross people's property, but that they are given to other people to use that property. I mean, have you looked at this? Or Peter, do you know?
I can address that. That's actually was originally the Gove Road was developed. Probably 100 years ago, that road was developed, so those cottages that we built.
That was the original
That's
road.
the
It
original
was
road.
there before around 1929 when our place was originally built. So the lower road was the original road into that area.
What's your name? And
My name is Nan Vigers.
Are you in a butter?
Yes.
Thank you.
So-
And on Peter's deed, that road is referred to as the Shore Road. It's never been referred to as a driveway, ever.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
as
it was
long
the
as
town. Yeah, it was the town when I called, he said, I kept saying road, he kept saying Peter, it's not a road, it's not a road, it's a driveway.
Who said
So,
that?
Could be a shared driveway.
Paul.
How could he say that?
Well-
We
well-
went by 3
well-
other properties.
One at
He
a
said-
time.
I'm sorry.
One at a time, please.
Yeah, so when I made that call, the building inspector kept correcting me because I kept saying Shore Road. He said, it's a driveway. My big concerns were because somebody had expressed a concern about a fire truck needing to turn walking around, and he said, Peter, do you think, I mean, when we're talking about these roads and dead ends, every single driveway in this town is a dead end. Every driveway, and this is what he said to me, every driveway a fire truck has to pull into.
But
that
every
fire truck
driveway
has to
does not
back.
service 10 or 20 or 30 houses.
I agree, but,
That's
but
the
the
difference.
road, the bigger road,
They service one.
right, this, I mean, so one services four, each one services four.
And if I could answer your question, if you have the plan in front of you,
I do.
the problem with what Mr. Loser is saying is that where he says it's his land, where that road is located, his deed contradicts that. And I'm gonna read the description in parcel 2, and I believe his deed is part of your packet.
It is.
It says, "An area bounded by Camp Road as follows. Beginning at a point on Rocky Cove Road where Lower Camp Road joins," all right, which is down at this corner,
Where it forks off.
okay? Then running along Rocky Cove Road approximately 360 feet southwest. Then west-northwest along road for 110 feet. Then along Lower Shore Road, 385 feet approximately, north-northeast to boundary line of lot number 25, owned by said grantors, which would have been the Whites, including adjoining beach. Then 230 feet approximately southeast back to starting point on Rocky Cove Road. His property does not include the road, it is bounded by the road, and he does not have the right to
block it.
obstruct the road which abuts his property. The fact that someone gave him bad information doesn't make it right.
Can I ask another question? Because
Yes, sir.
you mentioned 2 lots. Am I correct that I live on 1 lot?
Not according to your deed and not according to the records at the Rockingham Registry of Deeds.
Do I live on a single lot? Because my understanding is, yes, those lots were merged,
Okay, that's what I was just gonna say. They probably were merged when the legislature.
in which case that road not only
Required.
doesn't abut me, it is all.
You don't get the road in the merger if it's not yours.
Right.
In other words, if that were not your property, they couldn't be merged properly,
That's correct.
legally.
But they were merged, am I correct?
I have no idea.
They were merged by the town when my father owned both properties.
So the town taxes it as a single lot, although only only the small piece is taxed as a waterfront piece.
And the
If
other
it
one
is,
isn't.
if it is indeed a single parcel, then both of them should be taxed as waterfront, and they aren't. So the town is, the
Has
records are
separated them.
ambiguous, so,
Right,
but that's, tax isn't your concern, so,
right.
so.
So I just want to point out that the town assessor also made another error that we had to correct a month ago. So the town assessor sometimes makes errors when they're playing the town maps.
So, Peter, as a person who, your family has owned this property and did this development, am I correct?
Yes.
So you have a long history there. Do you agree with Attorney Schultz's explanation of the right-of-way and that it indeed and in fact is not Mr. Lozier's personal property?
Yes, I do. That's the original road, and actually his deed refers to 2 parcels. Both of those parcels border that road. Neither one of those parcels include that road.
Exactly.
So that is not his road to block off.
And
And it created a more dangerous situation for the other residences in that road, including our renter at 60 Whites Grove Road.
Can I ask a question about, so we're talking safety, when the driveway, Dermatol driveway existed, and a fire truck came in, or an ambulance came in, let's say to your property, as it's on again, in the winter, how are they gonna get out? Because they sure weren't gonna go out that second entrance.
Well, originally, when you blocked off the road, you had implied, I think, Nancy, that you were gonna widen that road to the point where emergency vehicles could get in and out.
The
But
entrance.
you didn't.
The
You ended up
entrance.
leaving trees in the middle,
Oh,
and now in the winter, that's very
Right,
hard.
and you and I talked about that, and I do agree that anything we can do there, because my house is, I'm there too. I don't want a fire engine not be able to get into my house.
I don't think a fire engine can make it to your house around that road. I mean, that's a very narrow, curvy road, and a new fire truck certainly couldn't get in there.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what we need.
I'm a white as well,
Well, maybe we
And my
should,
father owned the property that Peter Lozer bought.
Should we,
And my father built that house. And at some point, what the town did was, because my father owned where the house was, the piece across the street where the beach is, and our little place on
You
74.
can, you can come up to the microphone if you could.
All right,
It happens.
so my father owned where Peter Lozer's house is, because he built a house.
Right.
The piece across the street where the beach is,
Yeah.
and our place next to the beach, 74, where
which
Vigors.
is also across from that lot, so
Mm-hmm.
it's right next to the beach lot.
Right, thank you.
you're welcome.
And my husband and I paid for this lot line adjustment and this survey, so. When my father owned all 3 of those lots, and they were 3 separate lots, the town did their administrative combining of lots.
Mm-hmm.
They combined our lot, 74, with the beach.
Okay.
And my
Good for
fa-
you.
Yeah, well, except for tax time. And then my father was trying to get the town to separate them because the beach went with the house. And the town said, no, you have to pay to do a lot line adjustment. Well, my dad passed away before the whole administrative thing was straightened out so that you didn't have to do a lot line adjustment to correct things like that. But before that rule came down from where the state or wherever, my husband and I paid for a lot line adjustment so that the beach went back with the house and our lot was expanded a little bit. And that's what this is. And as far as we ever knew, my father and mother owned where the house is, the lower road, which is between the house and the beach, and the beach. And my father was supposed to be maintaining it. He tried to get the town to maintain it. It was designated as an emergency lane at one point.
Has that been undesignated?
I discovered a couple years ago it was undesignated and we were never notified of that. And so, and also as a piece of history, my parents had a cottage where the house is years ago, in the late 70s, and that cottage burned down. And the fire trucks came by the lower road to try to put the fire out. They didn't try to go
Closer.
by the upper road, they came the lower road, because it was the fastest and the simplest.
And closer to the
And I have
house?
been very straightforward with Peter Lozer, who is a good neighbor. That has been a concern of mine, and we have had very frank discussions about that. And he knows that my concern has always been that emergency vehicles could get to us.
And me.
Right, but our understanding from when my father owned the property and my grandfather before him was that my father owned that lower road.
Who owns it now?
As far as we're concerned, Peter Lozer and Joy do. Now, that doesn't mean that we agree that they could close it, because it's a driveway, but he was told that he could, so.
Supposedly.
But it was the original road in the Grove. And our place was built in 1929.
And so,
So-
Joy, you have a right-of-way over that road, am I correct? Am I correct, Attorney Jones? Oh, no, she's
That's
before
Peggy.
it.
That's Peggy. Joyce Peters Way.
Sorry. Blondes.
Yes. Yes.
That,
Regardless of who owns the land where the road is
the
located.
right-of-way exists.
The right-of-way exists
The right-of-way exists.
for the
Right.
benefit of anybody, literally anybody, but in particular, the people whose land abuts the roadway.
So the lots beyond Mr. Lozier's house and beach lot, there's my little map here, 74 and 75. You live in one of those,
We're
yes?
74.
And so, as far as you're concerned, do you have a right-of-way to your house across the lower road?
It doesn't exist anymore.
But if it did, would you have a right-of-way?
Yes.
Yes.
Whether the road exists,
Would I have to drive 40 miles an hour through it? No.
no.
The right-of-way exists whether it's,
Right.
whether it's grass, dirt, rocks, whatever. If the right-of-way hasn't been extinguished by anybody, it exists. And you
So
can
I
have,
did address that with, I can't remember his name. Paul. And my understanding, it's not deeded that there's a right of way, but according to New Hampshire law dictates that I must give my landlocked neighbors access. And according to him, does that sound right?
Mm.
I don't think so.
That
Yeah, I don't-
cannot landlock neighbors. It doesn't need to be written in the deed to say that I give my neighbors access. It's automatic in the state of New Hampshire. That's what
Correct.
was explained to me, but it doesn't have to be written in the deed. I cannot landlock my neighbors.
Correct.
Right.
But he said there's nothing in that law that says that access has to be double-ended. It's simply access.
What do you mean by double-ended? I don't understand.
Two entrances onto the back road, onto West Road, and an entrance on each side. So if those roads are joined, there's an entrance on each side. And he said you do not have to have a two-ended access for each property. My concern that I brought up with him is what if a fire engine comes in, do I need to get it so it can turn around? And he said, no, it'll back out, it's gonna have to back out the whole road. There's nowhere to turn around on that road. Doesn't matter if you make it turn around or someone else, but. And it certainly would not have been able to turn around in the old second entrance. It was straight as a T directly up. That's changed. But I do agree with Peter. I need, and I consider that my obligation to make that more accessible. And I'm probably the worst of the turn because I've got the sharp turn.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly don't think that turn is any sharper than the turn at your mom's house. Is a pretty sharp turn, and that's paying the road. So the road, the whole road has logistical issues from
And that's what the fire
a
chief is.
maneuverability. I mean, you drove the road, you know that the whole road.
Mhm.
It's difficult, we know that, we've run on it. You can get past people, but you gotta be courteous and move over when people are coming.
I have one question on the, what you call a shore road or the gravel drive. Now, when you redid your, lot line adjustment,
Are you talking to me?
yeah, when you did the lot line adjustment, did this road move over here? Because it,
Oh, yes.
yep, I can,
Anybody can come up who wants to see what he's doing.
when you redid your lot line here, were there two roads here always, or did this road move over
Okay,
here
this
when
is
you
to
did
the
your lot line
beach.
adjustment?
This is to the beach.
Yeah,
This is us.
yeah,
This is our driveway.
right, that's your driveway there. Was this roadway was always here even
Yes.
before you did the lot line
Yes.
adjustment? Okay,
Yes.
that's what I was wondering. I
So
was
where
wondering,
can you guys draw in where the rocks are now?
Oh,
The
yes,
rocks
I can,
are-
absolutely. Yep.
You can see it on the other plan.
If I can, I don't have my eyeglasses
No,
on.
over here.
Where am I?
The rocks are
So this is
there.
your beach.
Yes, so, oh yeah, somebody drew the lines.
why did I just?
Oh, yeah, no,
He was
that's,
extending the
Well,
lot
and
line.
then you've
pretty
got some up
accurate, wouldn't you
here. You've got some up here.
I do, no, don't.
Yeah, this is my driveway, where I used to park here and drive out there.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's yours. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, so it's here.
Oh, and there, okay.
And
Where is
Up in here.
It must,
Probably
oh, it must be here.
Probably up
Yes, yes,
closer to
yes.
your porch.
So this
Now-
is open here?
Yeah,
Correct. Now, the thing that changed is
that's not
this,
open anymore.
this used to go straight up into this road. That I've changed to, am I accurate here? Something
Yeah, something like that.
like this. Peter's concern is that this is still relatively narrow. I mean, the whole thing's relatively narrow. He'd like to make this more, I think, like that. Because there's trees right, I left these trees right here. He'd like to take those out and widen this. I think the big, hey, Peter, am I correct that the issue with the trees, it's when you're coming from say from your brother's house, you can't make that turn.
Well, and with those trees in the way, we can't properly plow it in the winter either.
Right.
It just ends up being a very narrow lane that's hard to pass.
Right,
even
so
with
the
a
idea
car.
is take these trees out. It just gets real steep here, but, do something like this so that he can come
Are the,
this way and in.
Peter, are the trees
As well
on
as
the
this
road
way.
that he blocked, or there are others road?
think it's.
This is the corner that's,
In the middle of the Rocky Cove Road.
But this is only 5 feet
oh,
right here.
it's tight, it's real tight.
Trees that are where?
And
That's
and
not
where
even-
we go
has anything to do
to, I
with
mean, not that
these.
we have to, but this was where
So-
kids were walking down and.
So I don't
Yeah, but you
understand.
mostly, you
That's
go.
more of somebody else's
go this way, you just
problem,
need to
not
make
his.
Well, it's on his property.
But you're saying the roads aren't on his property, they're not
No,
part
this
of his
road here.
responsibility.
That
This road here, we
but
have
that's
a
true.
right of way
But-
to, just like
no, I'm sorry.
everybody else does. But there's trees that are up here blocking it.
Correct,
And we also all have a right of way over here.
correct.
But he put rocks in the middle of it.
This road.
That's the original road that we all have a right
This
of way.
part here, or this part
It
here?
was described as a road.
But I'm not,
Wait a minute.
Okay,
Oh,
so
wait,
this,
no, this part here, I'm sorry. That's the original road.
but that's, the part that was eliminated is
Yes.
this part.
Right, so that's a road right there that he has whited out.
Trailers around.
Right.
I mean, it's-
So his property line goes along
But
here.
you're talking about
along
trees that
there.
are way over here.
Well, that's the other thing, is that, because this isn't wide enough, and
But
this is
that's on
blocked.
White
there is a proper
It borders
process
his
if you were
property,
gonna
but that
subject
should-
somebody
if
to
the
gates
trees
and
are
bars,
here,
no, they're not, official notification.
They're in the middle.
I
the
know.
middle of the road.
That's, exactly,
But
so,
you
I
didn't
mean,
put them there.
not-
well,
in
I
the old
did,
days,
to
the
be
these,
fair, I did call the town.
Supposed to widen
It
up.
wasn't that I was trying to be
But
sneaky.
emergency
And when it
vehicles
closed
called
down,
can come
I
in
thought
this way.
I
It
was
sounds
It'd be hard
like
to
all
come
of
in
you
that
on Whites Grove Road need to deal with your road.
emergency lane
That
by
shouldn't be
town.
the main
So
part.
I went to ask
All of
about
you.
that, and they said,
Well,
No, no.
your family's the one who started the whole
well, when
thing.
did that change?
That's it, all these
And then why didn't you notify us?
And I certainly can understand that if a tree goes down, where are you, Peggy? You're here.
It's that lower one
Here.
that has the two parcels.
You know, I can
But
certainly understand if a tree goes down in
parcels
this
that border that
segment,
road.
you're concerned.
If parts of the
But
road
this
are
segment
owned by
is
deed,
100th
then why does he not
the
own part
road
of the
that
road
goes out
that?
here.
Kind of
that
just
if
because
a
it's
tree goes
original?
down,
Deed says
none
that
of us
his,
get emergency access.
both property.
I know what you're
parcels-
saying.
He has
I
two
absolutely
parcels,
agree that
and both of
you
those
gotta look
parcels
out for
border on
yourself.
that
Can't
road. One
solve
goes
that,
this
but you
way,
can
one
make
goes
sure
that
that
way. But
this
they both,
section
he
of
doesn't
this
own that
section
road.
doesn't-
But your sister, cousin, whoever she
I see
says
where
that
you're coming from.
Jason,
Go
it's
with.
irrelevant who owns it.
I'm not
The
sure
right
that-
of way exists whether he owns it or not.
I know, but
Every
what
house is
I'm
gonna
saying
have
is that
This is where she did the lot line adjustment.
two access points.
all of the road issue is really clouding the fact that we're
so
supposed
I
to be
think we have
here on
clarity
a
now on
variance.
where
Oh, that's a,
the road
I was just
was.
wondering for the project.
As far as I'm concerned, all of the
That's
issues
true.
with the abutters are something we need to be concerned with.
I agree with
Number
you.
one, I'm reticent to approve anything that will add a residence when the state says it can't have one, because then we're burdening everybody in the neighborhood with that issue. If anybody wants to enforce it, they'll have to take it before.
Oh, well, the ADU, I can see us saying with the deed, but I'm just saying, we're spending so much time on just this road issue, it's like,
Well, it's good to get all these people together to talk about it.
it is.
It's like
And
the
you
little
know, these are my
community
neighbors,
forum.
So we do want to,
So, we have some issues, Mike, do you wanna,
Uh,
I mean, we haven't had this,
Joanna, did you?
Rousing the meeting
So
ever.
basically, what occurred over here when we had dissemination was, there was clarity given to where the original road went and where the rocks were placed.
Okay.
All right,
that was it.
that was it.
I think that was all picked up by these mics. By these
But
two
I bet it was
microphones.
like this, Terry.
Yeah, it probably was. It was a
Exactly.
lot of talking.
I'm sure Joanna didn't
All
hear
right,
it.
so,
so if I can just, so it seems like there's two kind of separate issues. One is the permit for the building, the other one is the road issue. And I agree, we should, as neighbors, work this out. Whether it's here, or, as far as some of the issues that were brought up with the house, taking what would be the boat and Kubota tractor storage. The first thing that I need to say is commercial use. I'm a physician. I'm not using it for commercial use. It's for a tractor that I already own, Kubota, which I actually, hopefully, benefits my neighbors because I've spread gravel for them and I try to be helpful. And a boat. So it has to be deeper than a regular garage because the boat's 23 feet, trailer. The boat itself is only 18, trailer is 23. So that was the only issue. I didn't, Joanne came up with a large equipment storage. It's really just, it's a deep garage, is basically what it is. So an oversized garage, I don't know. As far as moving an ADU or moving bedrooms over that part of it, well, number one, that might not be possible based on the question of can I even do an ADU? But that would definitely be two separate houses. That logistically creates so many additional problems. Our original plan was to go back with the addition across the driveway, so make an L to the house. We cannot do that because of the power lines. I cannot encroach on the power lines, unfortunately. I tried to talk to the telephone, or the power company.
Can't encroach on the right of way either with your lots. Just wanna make sure.
No. But I can't, the power lines are the power lines, unfortunately. And they said maybe someday they'll go up onto the road, but not today. Yeah. So, certainly we're trying to build a single home. I'm not trying to build two homes. The ADU was a great idea. It seemed logical. I had no intention until Russ brought that up and said, you should be doing an ADU above the garage, blah, blah, and it sounded great. If it's not feasible, I'm fine with that. I just need a bigger house to accommodate my family. The house, as far as the house issue, I guess, as far as it impacting my neighbors, our house is behind everybody else. There's no doubt the value of these houses have nothing to do with well, I should say little to do with what's behind them. It has everything to do with what's in front of them. I hope that this will be attractive in the neighborhood. I hope it will not look like an eyesore. I think I probably am somewhat accurate to say that most of my neighbors who have rebuilt their houses certainly would have expanded their houses had their lot size allowed them to do so. I know that you probably would. I assume that you probably would have if you could. I can. So I certainly would like to put on a garage. The idea of not having a garage would be difficult for me. I realize I have neighbors that don't have garages, but most of them are not living there full time. We are going to live. This is going to be our home. I want to make it. I shouldn't say I need. I want to make it a home that we can live in, that works with the neighborhood, that is not, certainly not an eyesore to the neighborhood. I would never want that. And then the road issue is another issue, and I'm not sure this is the place to even talk.
May I interrupt you?
Absolutely.
I apologize. Joanna, what kind of time frame are we on in terms of when we receive the application and when we're supposed to act on it? Because I personally think you should come back with some better plans. I'm not prepared to vote on these plans. They don't give us enough data. They don't give us dimensions. They don't give us. I also would be very reluctant to vote on granting you an ADU, given what your deed says. Whether or not it's the town's business is one thing, but then we would be burdening all of your neighbors with enforcing that deed in a court of law if they wanted to or felt.
So I guess the questions I would have, I'm just trying to do.
So the ADU is part of your request.
Correct.
To me, it seems like you should modify what you asked the board for and perhaps give us.
So just so I can be clear, because I know my wife is going to ask me these questions.
I think she has a question, actually.
She's not here.
I'm in
Who's my
You're
wife?
in a butter.
Jen?
Oh, you having a question?
They look, but the first question, I really don't have a problem supplying dimensions and stuff. I certainly would ask the question, is that a burden you put on everybody? Is that the
It's a
rule?
burden that I put on everybody, and we don't have rules. Every
Okay.
case is different.
Okay, that's,
Every case is-
because I know she's gonna ask me. As far as my deed, oh, that's fine. Yeah, I know. As far as my deed, does the town have the right to try to impose my deed?
I think
Try
that.
to enforce my deed, I'm sorry.
I don't
Well,
think
I'm
so.
not enforcing your deed, but I'm saying because of your deed, I don't really think you should be asking us for an ADU.
So in the absence of that wording in my deed, would the town then consider the ADU?
I have no idea. Every individual here has their own vote. We all make up our own mind.
Okay, just so they,
You have not, just another defect in your presentation,
okay.
you have not presented the case and convinced me, I don't know about the other people, that you meet the 5 criteria that you need to meet in order to be granted a variance.
Okay,
So it wasn't part of your presentation. I
okay,
know it's in your packet, but it's very, your statements in there are very minimal.
okay.
Like,
So I guess,
I think you have a little more homework to do, is what
no,
I'm saying.
I mean.
But I don't know about our time, I don't know what,
Yeah,
I don't have the.
And I wanna let
in front of
other
me.
people
I think
do it.
it's 60 days, and that we've crossed that already because of.
well, can't he withdraw and make it his choice?
Or a continuance.
Yes, you can.
Or can we have a continuance and still?
Request to continue. Yes.
But have we passed the 60 days with, because it was a continuance because it wasn't proper notification by the town, right? So is that,
It certainly would have been nice to know all these issues, then I got a month. I would have pulled
I
it
know.
together.
Too bad we didn't get further, but, I think his application, if he's gonna ask for an ADU, as it's being requested, should be amended. If you're not going to ask for one, and I can't decide that for you, you can still ask for one.
Okay.
I personally won't vote for it because it's in your deed that you can't have it. And the drawing should be a little more specific.
Okay.
And the placement on the lot should be fairly accurate. You know,
Okay.
we're not asking for super engineering, but we're also not asking for, you know, an amateur to come in and just draw a little sketch, because it is approaching the boundaries of your property, and we really need to know the setbacks and all that kind of stuff. Then there's the issue of the road.
So I'm not clear, you need to know the setbacks. You do know the setbacks, correct?
No, because that's a sketch.
Correct, but the setbacks were measured. They're accurate.
right, he said,
Setbacks to what, though?
This is my property.
I hear you, but we don't know where the house fits within those setbacks, because the house is just a sketch.
yeah, but he laid the house out and then he measured it out.
No, he doesn't have any plans yet. He couldn't have
No,
laid it out.
if he knows the house is gonna be 38 feet long, it's not that hard to figure out where 38 feet is, and you put a stake in and
You know
you
what I'm saying?
measure, and that's what he did,
Generally
right?
get better plans than what you submitted. They're
Well,
not high
generally we don't.
engineering,
But,
but we generally do.
and you said you measured, the measurement you gave, you actually underestimated.
Correct, I actually put a stick, because some of my neighbors had that exact question. I actually staked it so that they could see where that.
Right.
It's really the corner of the garage that was probably the biggest.
The
issue.
closest, yeah.
So I went out with the tape measure and staked it and said, that's, just so everybody could see that's the corner. I don't think I got to, I talked to Justin, but I don't know that you ever got to actually see this.
And then there's the issue of the right-of-way. You know, if you might make a statement on that in your application about what you,
Now, does that have bearing on my application?
to me it would, because your abutters are here screaming about it.
Correct, but it,
I'm not saying they would necessarily persuade me in one way or the other, but I usually listen to abutters.
sure, absolutely.
And we had an attorney here tonight who explained that that's a right-of-way,
Correct.
and you cannot block a right-of-way. I know that.
Right.
So you must allow people to use it, whether you have children crossing it or
Except
not.
that it's not a right. I know that you've heard that term.
You're saying that Paul Colby told you it wasn't.
I'm saying I have a survey that shows it's not, and the town assured me that it wasn't. and
Your
we made-
deed says it is.
I know, I
and
made-
their
I made
deeds give them rights to
substantial
use it.
investments based on what the town clearly stated, and Joanne was
That-
present.
that-
What that has anything to do with- I-
Voluntary citizens.
I'd say the language in the deed definitely trumps the opinion. Definitely. In a court law. What,
the deed.
the language in the deed which
Right away.
explains your parcels and the rights of way, those are gonna supersede whatever,
somebody told-
whatever conversation you have with the town official. I guarantee you that.
Okay,
Who's not even here anymore.
Right.
okay.
Yeah, so, I mean.
And you
this is-
might want to consult with an attorney about that issue, because you obviously feel strongly about it. So does everybody else.
And I do understand your
we-
concerns for safety, especially with a porch that's 5 feet from that
Yeah.
original
Yeah.
cut through. I get that.
But it's like buying a house next to the road. You thought the right-of-way wasn't there, whatever.
So it is your, yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have one question.
Sure.
Just as to the discussion, I'm Deborah McLaughlin, I'm listed as the Warren property, I believe, on the map that's in front of you.
The Morin, did you say?
Yes, the old, that was on the old map, it's listed under Warren. It's directly across from the, where the 30-foot.
Can you tell me what number it is on the tax map? It's directly across from
72.
Thank you.
72. Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
the one on the side of the beach.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah, so-
other lot.
So while we're already discussing much of this issue anyways, I guess my question just to put on the table is that the measurement, which is the allowance of the 30 feet, if I was told that each house owns half of the road going across, whether a shared road, driveway, whatever the term is.
Mm.
So my question to express is, so should the measurement to the point of the garage to the edge of the property, should it be from the edge of our grass, or should it be with the road is 15 feet wide, 7 feet in?
No, he's got it
The
shown
edge of
correctly
the
to the
road.
property line. Because the right-of-way can move, like at my lake house, the right-of-way cuts right through, and I have property on both sides.
Okay,
So it's the property line, and he's got that marked properly here.
All right, because that was the question as to if we were obligated to maintain half of the road, was my understanding.
Did you get that from Paul Colby too?
No, that's, no, that's generally how, on a plat where a regular street is laid out, people's boundary is actually to the center of the road. On a private road, all hell breaks loose, as you've seen tonight. Then it's all fighting over words in a paragraph that was written 100 years ago. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so at this point, sir, it is your purview to say, you don't have a full board, I don't want to hear from you, or you can force our hand and make us make a decision. Your ball's in your court.
I'm not sure I understand.
So because we don't have a full 5-member board, it is your right to say, I would like to continue this to another date. If not, if you say, I'd like you to make a decision tonight, that's fine. We will then have a discussion and make motions and do whatever, so.
So, yeah, I mean, I certainly, to satisfy the concerns that were brought up with regard to all the issues, except I'll separate out the drive right-of-way issue, because I'm not sure how that applies. And that's, to me, is a totally different issue that if we need closure, we need to all, I feel like we all need to come together. I certainly would not want to be getting attorneys, I'm married, I certainly don't want to deal with one outside, and that's enough for me. So as far as the house goes itself, to satisfy the board to get more information, I absolutely will continue
Okay.
and get that information to you so that you feel satisfied. And I will make very accurate measurements, because I believe the measurements for the setbacks now are actually over us. I'm sorry, the setbacks are actually greater than what I erred on the side of less.
Conservative,
And
yeah.
then I staked it in measurements. But I can actually change the angle of that, so I can move that one concerning area forward and back as needed. So I will get more accurate drawings to you.
And if you could include the well,
Absolutely.
the possible
Absolutely.
septic,
That's-
and
that's
maybe
That's
the,
actually in this, that's actually in this drawing, has my well and my septic.
and also the power lines.
Yeah, you should show the power lines. That would be helpful.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can do that too.
Power line.
And also the deck, because,
And no deck.
because the setback from the camp road,
I can do the setback.
the setback from the camp road respects that it is a right-of-way, and that it is a road described in your deed, and your lot goes to the edge of that road. So that's your setback point.
No,
as
his
far-
lot goes on the other side of that
Yes,
road.
I'm not, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, I'm not sure I agree that my lot doesn't.
Check- Is your wife a land use attorney?
No,
Cats.
but
You might check with an attorney about that whole situation.
I know that she did some investigation, and when, I know that towns or the state started merging, bordering properties.
At one point, the legislature passed a law that required towns to merge lots that were contiguous, that were next to each other in the same ownership, if they were under zoning, if they were undersized.
And our understanding
And
when we bought the property, is it was a single lot, and there are no right-of-ways described in our deed. So that was our,
We have your deed.
Yeah.
what does it say about the right?
For
Well, it
anybody
describes
else
the
who may
road.
dis-
It describes your property as being two
Along.
pieces
Correct, but there
along,
was
bounded by a
no-
road.
But there was no town-maintained road behind it, so it was the only access then. So I see what you're saying, right? Because at that point, it was the only access. I couldn't take it out because you wouldn't have been able to get to your house at all. So it was by virtue of the fact that it was the only access, of course it was described as a right of way. However, it's not the only access, there's now a much larger road running behind the properties.
That doesn't extinguish the granting of right-of-ways, though.
Right.
It doesn't,
But that's what I'm saying, there's nothing in our deed granting a right of way.
it wouldn't be in your deed. It would be in whoever deeded the land originally from the person, probably the whites, who owned the right-of-way at that
Where
point in
would we
time.
find that?
You would find it in everybody else's deed.
It would just
Go
track
look
the
up
deeds
all
back.
your abutters' deeds, and they'll all have that language in there that they have the right to use that road, probably. Mr. Schulte?
To access their property.
Correct,
Yeah.
The
correct.
property assessment card for Mr. Loza's property says, WF, waterfront across the street, NC, not connected to house, right-of-way between house and water.
Right.
That's pretty clear.
Mr. Lozier, did you hear what Attorney Schulte just said?
Can you read that again, sir?
Could you do it
He
again?
wasn't paying.
Good.
He's reading from your tax card.
Right.
So this is the town of Nottingham speaking.
Okay.
It says, waterfront across street, not connected to house, right-of-way between house and water.
But this is the assessor's.
Right, and when was that
That's-
statement made?
That's the, I couldn't tell you that, just the.
So I'm assuming that was made before there was ever a larger road behind the property.
The larger road has nothing to do with the right-of-way.
Right.
Correct, but right of ways to give people access to their property, there now is access to their property via another road.
It doesn't extinguish a right-of-way. They can have more, they can have 100 right-of-ways, rights-of-way.
Right, that original right was not erased when somebody built another road.
I expect they would have to relinquish, everybody that has a right-of-way on that road would have to relinquish it for it
And
to
does
be
it
extinguished.
describe the right of way?
Your deed
And
does.
their deeds do.
Right.
Their deeds are measured back from the lake to the edge of the right-of-way, which is where the boundary shows on that plan, okay? And then his deed describes it running up to the other side of the right-of-way. So it is likely that the plan that you have that shows the boundary probably isn't correct as to where his waterfront his water side boundary is located, but that surveyor, Mr. Saulnier, is deceased, and we're never gonna get a
Is it
better
Tom?
answer from him.
I knew him.
It was Ladd.
Pardon?
Ladd, yeah, Rich
Richie
Ladd.
Ladd.
Right.
Sonia wasn't a surveyor.
So,
anyway.
you know, if I were searching the title to this, because that's what I do, and I saw that, and I saw that the deed read differently, I would be talking to the surveyor to ask him why he did that. I suspect, going back to the question that Mrs. Bascom raised, it may not make a difference because that road is so narrow. I think your setback is only 20 feet. So if you're only talking about the technicalities of setbacks, it probably doesn't matter where that boundary line is located for purposes of setback. Where the garage is located makes a big difference to the neighbors, and that's a whole separate question.
I just wanted to follow up clarification or just a statement is that Mr. Lozier wants to put the shed, the 24 by 24 shed out back, but and there's power lines that supposedly go right through there. So how is that shed allowed there and not the garage?
The existing shed,
No?
No, it's a-
New utility,
that's on the other side, that's far enough away to the other side.
so why, that's
Yeah, the power
my
lines-
suggestion is to put.
Okay.
The power lines go between that shed and your
Run
house,
right over the existing shed.
Right.
Almost over its.
over the little
So
shed.
they go over your house?
No, they go right next to the distal corner of our house, but then, as you come forward, they go over that freestanding shed that's there now.
The little
And
shed.
then they go behind, the neighbors that,
You might be able to draw it out because
Yeah,
the big plan shows that there's a pole up near Mrs. Varga's property, and then there's a pole down on the lot 82, that diamond-shaped lot. There's a pole, New Hampshire Co-op pole there, and there's another one up near the north side of the property. So, but there may be other poles that aren't shown on this plan too. But, you know, maybe one possibility would be to have the garage on that side and just make the house 12 feet bigger, and you could accommodate the extra living space in that and get a variance for that. Instead of having a 40-foot garage, you have a slightly smaller house with a separate detached garage, and that would solve everybody's issues. But in my experience, everybody in the world thinks he can be an engineer, an architect, and a lawyer, and they're all wrong. So,
and I think that the other advantage of being is that will give all of us a chance to talk, which I think, I think from a safety standpoint, somebody that brought up, if there was access that something could go through for emergencies.
Like a gate or something.
Because our concern was never a fire engine going. My concern was cars going through.
Again, I think that's a question for your wife, because I don't think you can change the nature of a right-of-way, because you were not the original grantor.
Okay, so I need to
And
get.
all the
somebody-
grantees would have to agree to the change, and it would, you'd have to file documents in the Registry of Deeds and to make amendments. You could do it. It would be a little bit of a project, probably. Maybe at the same time, you could make a road association and deal with your road, so that when the poor zoning board has to go down there, we can turn around.
Make it a town road. Make it a town road.
You have to bring it up to code, I mean, to the levels in order to make
All
it
right,
a town road.
so what does your time frame look like? You're asking for a continuance again, which is fine. Last time it was on us.
Correct.
This time it's also on us, really, because we only have 4 members.
We only meet once a month.
Needs to be re-notified though, still. I will not.
Okay,
You will not need to.
You do not need to re-notify.
okay.
So a month is a month. Give all of us time to do some.
So that would be our August meeting.
We have one August, what, 21st? Is that
It's a month and 4 days.
And there's 2 current cases on the docket tonight.
Ooh,
On that night,
ooh,
Get pizza.
well, this was an easy one. So.
eat
Get
early.
pizza.
are you kidding? We're gonna need no-dos.
Coffee, maybe. Yes, we
Alright,
have.
so- So you're looking for the August 21st, and there's 3 cases that night, so bring your no-dos.
Well, this is an easy one.
Yeah. All right. At this point, I'd like to close.
Joanna, can you answer that question? When do materials need to be submitted to you? The new documentation that he's going to present, when does it need to be submitted? Because Attorney Schulte probably wants a copy.
Per our town regulations, they're required a week prior to the meeting. Most board members request at least 10 days. That's up to the board, and that should be part of the motion. And the motion needs to also clearly state what is requested of the applicant to present.
I can do that, because I've got it written down.
So as a board, please.
I would appreciate that.
And I do need to know the date of the week prior to, 10 days prior to our meeting would be the 11th, right?
Correct.
Right.
Are you still sure you want to go for 30 days?
Yes, but
Okay.
yeah,
All
I
right.
think most of this I can do
Simply.
in days.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue case 18-005-VA, an application for Peter Loser and Joy Riddell, to August 21st, 2018 at 7 p.m. We need to have, by August 11th, new plans that include well and possible septic locations, power lines clearly delineated, and the decking location on the home.
And
And,
the right-of-way, a statement on the right-of-way,
and a statement on the right-of-way.
and
That's,
I would say a new application, including or not including an ADU, if you do it, if you are gonna eliminate the ADU.
Amendment if.
a clarification it also needs to include a clarification on your application as to exactly what you are requesting the variance on, be it a new build or an addition, etc.
Including demonstration of the 5 criteria, which.
Well, that's the application, I don't need to include that. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, folks. At this point, closing case 18005 VA. And that we're gonna hold on to.
Peter can come back now.
We still have more business to discuss, so if you can take your conversations out of that, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Do you want to do meeting minutes of May 15 first?
That would be great, because those are the ones that I said I didn't, was an error, and I sent those out a few days after.
Did everybody get a chance to read
I
those meeting
didn't.
minutes?
I responded to Joanna, that they looked fine to me.
Yes, I did as well.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of May 15th, 2018 as written.
I second.
All in favor?
I think it would be important for us to reseat Peter.
At this point, reseating Peter White to the board for the rest of this evening's business.
So that was prior to the vote, right?
Right, prior to the vote of the minutes,
Right. Oh, I saw him come up.
but we didn't receive it.
Thank you.
Do we have a copy of the variance forms?
Yes.
Oh, here they are at the back. Back of the book.
Can I just say, Joanna, that tonight reveals why it is so important to have a copy of the deed.
Yes, and tonight also reveals why it's really important to have everybody look at everything prior to the meeting, so I can tell them what's needed ahead of time, and they can send it in, and hopefully not continue
Right.
so much. We delayed them, and these plans and everything was sent to you guys over a month ago now.
Oh, no, they were delinquent then. They
We
didn't
can't
get,
make
they
a
didn't get
decision unless
worse.
we're meeting, though.
And that's when you can send to me, please have them bring these or present these ahead of time, so that they can be heard and hopefully voted on at this meeting.
Some
But the
some
trouble-
of the items that we got, though, came up in the meeting, like
Right.
Attorney Schulte had them.
I don't disagree with the ones that came up.
He,
But if
the
you
ones
knew
he
them ahead of
had,
time,
the
send it
ones
to
he
me
had
so
were
I
in
can
our
look at them.
packets from the last meeting.
Well, where is our packet?
You took, you had, those were mine that he had, actually. Because when I came in, I said to Joanna, oh, you gave us a new packet. I already had mine. And she said, well, we can put those out for somebody who wants to look at, to see what we're looking at. So they were in your packet from last
Well,
meeting.
we should have had them tonight.
They weren't in.
They weren't in here. If we
Are
could,
you
then we
talking
would
about
have had
this?
them.
Are you talking about this?
Well,
Yeah, that's the only plan we have, and it's,
No, the plan that you have per applicant is the one that was whited out to that section. This was presented by the attorney.
Right.
And this was not supposed to be presented to you guys because it wasn't what was submitted by the applicant.
I understand.
So,
Here's the other question, though. In the case of this, when we asked for additional information, I'm not sure that a lot of that we can tell until we get into the meeting. You know what I'm saying?
if you can tell.
Like,
because
if we
I-
don't get a deed, we don't know there's something in the deed that's gonna come up tonight. Today there was.
Okay, but
We had the
We had the deed. at
We
the
did
last
have the
meeting.
deed.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, we don't usually, and I'm glad, I think we should always have the deed. That's my
And
opinion.
that's that's actually part of the new application requirements. If I remember
Because, you know, I always wanna make sure the person who's applying is the owner.
Right.
and is all the owners.
But what I'm referring to is you guys wanted measurements of the house. And if you knew that prior to this meeting, because if you looked at the materials prior to this meeting significantly enough, and these were supposed to be presented a month ago, then I could have had the applicant come in with that and with more of an etched out plan. And that's why I send these out to you as soon as I get them. I scan it, I post it to the website, I let you know it's there. And I know you guys are a volunteer board, I get that. I totally do, and I respect that. But to not waste, I mean, this is now 3 months before they can be building, and that's not fair to the applicant. And it's not fair to your guys' time either. So that's what I'm saying.
So when you get plans, make sure they have dimensions on them.
Okay, then it needs to be stated in here that it's required to have that.
Right. We're trying to, this task tonight is to try to minimize her headache and loss of time for us and the applicant. We're trying to clean this up in a
Right.
formal, written manner.
And the other thing is that it all then looks bad at her, and because they're coming and going, you told me this was all okay, and now your board says it isn't. And that's because we are now changing what we're wanting, because before we haven't had to have.
I know when Pete Landry was on this board, if you didn't bring him survey plans, he had a fit. I mean, that's kind of where I learned it. He's a surveyor. Because you can't really tell
And
a lot of details if you
oftentimes,
don't have the details.
in the past, applicants would show up with more detailed
Right.
plans.
This guy came in with nothing.
This is very little. This is almost the least I've
I
ever
mean,
seen.
those plans look like I did it. That's not a compliment. You know, they're not, they
Yeah.
didn't seem to be at all,
Especially since he was asking for quite a bit.
Yeah, let's move forward.
Yeah.
I just have two questions that are related to our new zoning things. And if you go down a little ways, it says 6 sets of 11 by 17 plans. It does refer to setbacks, locations, dimensions of all structures and open spaces. It doesn't mention wells or location of wells and septics,
they should.
and I think it should,
I
yeah.
agree.
My second question
Does that come up anywhere else? Sorry to stop. I just want to get all the pieces of that puzzle before we run on. Is that come up anywhere else? Because if not, then that's the place for that to show.
So here's the thing that, I mean, we can specify structures as wells and septic, but that's the definition of structures in our zoning ordinance.
Yeah, wells and septic locations, yeah.
Okay.
And did you get power lines,
Mm.
overhead or underground? Because that'll have a,
That wouldn't hurt, yeah. Because, I mean, when you heard the lawyer talk, oh, it was nothing to move the house, but when you heard him talk, it was a power line there. It wasn't,
right.
it's easy to put that house on that side of
I'd
it.
have to drive back to see the whole power line set up, because I
I
didn't.
remember it.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was trying
Probably
not to
'cause I'm
knock my mirrors
scared
off
of
on the
electricity.
trees.
Yeah, it's tight down there.
It is.
Yeah, you said to go by and see it, and I'm like, I'm not going down the road.
Now, an additional question on the wells and septics, do we need to know the locations of the abutters, wells and septics when we're considering a variance?
You shouldn't need to.
What if their well radius is within 75 feet of,
If known, I
It
think
depends
it's
on what
if
they're
known.
asking. If they're asking for a relief from the setback requirements, then we probably should.
Yeah, I think,
I mean, that kind of stuff to me is common sense. If you're asking for relief from something from the board, you need to give the board the information about how it impacts the area. That's not too hard to do. It's on all septic plans. You have to put the abutters.
If you can find the septic plans.
right.
I don't think
Like-
it has any.
Like that's if known, you know, you,
let's say, and abutters?
But all that's gonna be, I mean, the abutting wells are gonna be something he's gonna have to address when he does a septic plan. So that doesn't have anything to do with our variance.
Wait, and Joanna mentioned, we kind of like flew by that structures, our definition includes includes wells and septic. So
All
should we?
structures and open spaces are included in the item set, 6 sets of 11 by 17 plans.
yeah, so to me, all structures, I don't think a layperson is gonna go rooting through all the definitions in our zoning ordinance and pick that apart.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Right.
If you'd let me continue on this, is I think we need to include somewhere in this what the definition is of structures, so that they understand that this includes. And maybe even have, where you have structures there, say, according to the zoning ordinance. This is what it includes.
Okay.
So that they have all of it, because if you leave it as to just that, we've got in here barns, swimming pools, manufactured home, mobile home, okay, well, gas, liquid storage tanks, deck, porch, balcony, then you.
Should we just refer back to the definition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So add in parentheses and
See
see
definition.
definitions in zoning ordinance.
Okay.
cause I see us going now, well, you didn't show us where this was.
Right, that's a, you know, and that's a good way to capture a moving target as
So
those
I'm
things.
deleting well and structure, as well and septic. And,
Leave the
Yeah.
overhead.
That definition.
Parentheses.
CO definition, and then power lines, overhead and underground, because that's not part of structure, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And well radius of a butter if known.
Well and septic, yeah,
Well
sure.
and septic.
Information on abutting lots if known. You might not know that,
Okay.
but it really comes up with these teeny lots at the lake.
Theoretically, the town knows, but in the old, before zoning, they don't have
So
any
we
records.
did jump to the 6th bullet. Is there anything up above that we need to address? Let's go through this in an orderly fashion, or we'll be here all night.
And once I, 1, 2, 7 bullets down, if you're seeking variance, I'll fill in the page numbers,
When we know them.
yeah, when I have them
Oh, okay.
solidified.
I don't know if this is, if that next bullet is a good place to put it or not, but I think it needs to be stressed to the applicant that the more information they put on this, rather than being brief, they need to really talk about what their hardship is, or why they're seeking, well, the variance is for a hardship, what their hardship is, and not just say, because everybody around me has this, or it won't interfere with anything. You know, the stronger case they build, the less likely they are to be turned down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should suggest in there, to complete the 5 points of law on your application, that they should make that part of their presentation to the board.
Well, it does say that you may be required to verbally present. It says that on there.
Right under that one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think they should be. You should expect to verbally present.
Typically, you guys do say, please read it, you didn't tonight.
Right.
Typically, you do.
We didn't
Yeah, we
really
do.
get that far tonight.
Well, no, it was a continuance, and I felt like we'd already had that captured before, and that's why you didn't have them do it again.
So under, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in italics, I have, remember, the more prepared you are, the less time you will need to spend before the board. So is that where you were suggesting I expand on that language a little bit with what you were saying, Long?
No, I was thinking on the one above it, where it says you are required to complete the 5 points of law. I would put be as thorough as possible, or,
Is this like right after the
Because
bold?
they're important. They have to prove those 5 things to be granted. And if they prove them, we have to give it to them.
right.
Do we have a copy of the,
Be as thorough as possible. This is your case, or something like that, or your case rests on proving these points to us, or I don't know what the best way to word it is. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe we should call that guy back in.
he was good.
Did you see I went over and said hello to him before he was my divorce attorney
Oh, no.
20-something years ago. I haven't seen him since.
No, I think that's
He-
pretty
he'd
good.
totally forgotten me.
Are we
Except-
asking for people's deeds or not, or is
I
that
was
part of
gonna
that
ask.
first bullet on the front?
A copy of their
The
deed.
applicant's name on the application must be the property owners of record. And that was,
Include a copy of the deed.
Include a copy of the deed, yeah.
We should,
I thought I had that in
we should also probably get the tax card as
I agree with you,
That's a
Terry.
good
part
idea.
of it, yeah.
Because that had some important information.
Well, I mean, the tax card doesn't help anything in court. I mean, you wouldn't, they would not take that as presentation in court, but, at least gives you information on the dimension of the building.
They wouldn't
I
take the
didn't
other
have any
guy's
of that.
testimony either.
What's that?
They wouldn't take the applicant's testimony either. So he
Right.
didn't have any substantiation.
Right.
Paul Colby told him that he didn't have to let anybody use the road.
He was just winging it the last couple of years anyway.
The tax card would be very helpful, because you could see the size of everything that's there, and,
So do you add the deed piece?
I did, I thought that was in here, but I added it this time.
Okay. I kind of thought we had that discussion too, and
Yeah,
So does it say include a copy of your deed and tax card?
yes, I
Yes.
did, I did just write that in there to add.
awesome.
And I can't wait till these are approved by you guys so that we can start using them, because this, all this language to help the applicants to expand on and actually have a thorough 5
yeah, this is
criteria
nice,
This is,
will be huge.
very
Yeah.
nice.
This would be better.
We couldn't we have this actually, even if we prove it tonight, couldn't this be what this applicant fills out for the next meeting?
And we could always amend this if we
Right, we
miss
could
something
change it
tonight.
later, yeah.
do we have to have a public hearing to amend it? No, this is
No.
just
No, this is-
internal.
This
This
is
is our
in-house, I
own.
think.
Yeah. So I thought.
So I agree that we could, as long as the board agrees that I'm not charging a new fee because he continued his hearing. This is just making it so it's more clear for you guys. Is that agreed?
Right,
Okay.
I
Right,
don't think you should have to pay again,
but you could give him a copy so he could read,
even though.
yeah.
at least see what
Okay,
extra he could do.
I think it'll help them.
Yeah, it would help him.
okay. All right, just making sure that I'm not,
Well, and
counting
it's,
this is a new case.
right, and you could even put on his not a new case, the
Okay.
whatever, application prior, no new fee, however you want to mark it up. So that it is, but at least then, I mean, he has more of what we're expecting.
Okay.
Because it's changed.
All right. To do,
It
you
is,
guys wanna?
it does have the deed, the deed is on here, Joanna.
Where? I thought I did include
Okay, you
where.
did. I
Yes.
think it's the
Right here.
second to the last page. It starts with zoning board of adjustment application
The
variance, blah,
second
blah, blah.
page, Joe. This one.
Down here, under, in bold and underlined, please provide a copy of the recent deed for this property. The signer shall be the owner.
Does it say that?
Oh, I don't know what,
Oh, no.
maybe we should get these
Oh,
pages
yeah.
numbered, Joanna, too.
That's on the
I
third
will,
page.
Final.
once you guys agreed on everything, I was
Because
gonna.
I can't tell anybody where this page is. It's like next to
So
one.
where you have this on here, rather than adding it on to the top, although you could leave it there as well, and make this as
Oh,
a
yeah.
reminder, I
Yeah.
would add where it says recent deed and tax card.
And tax card, yeah.
Okay, and,
So we having it show up in 2 locations or just in the check?
I think it
I
would be
would
pertinent
too.
too.
Yeah, I think it
It's
would be,
that important
because he
to the
won't
board.
miss it.
Let's make it in
Right.
2 spots.
So then he can go down the
So we
checklist.
state it here, but we also list it in your checklist up on the front page for your
Right.
reference. Okay. Yep. That's great.
So with these edits, do you guys want me to go ahead and say that this is done? This
Yes.
is like your 4th time.
Yes, and if we run into issues, we'll
vote,
just
right?
deal with them as they come up, if they do.
So do we need to
How will
vote on
you-
this?
How will you get the gray page numbers? Don't they refer to another document, or is it of this own document?
She doesn't know the page number yet.
It's these,
He's gonna put in those little gray squares, they're gonna
Oh,
disappear,
those are
aren't
the
they,
page
Joanna?
numbers referring to this own document, this same document, not a different document.
Right, once I page.
She just had to wait
Okay.
till it's all done to figure out what page.
Okay, so I do
Okay.
have 2 things. So under Article 5, the flip side of the first page, it says under Article 5, administration and enforcement. We don't have that in our zoning ordinance. So that was something I was bringing up to the planning board to change, and then we didn't have time to get it done this year.
It's irrelevant, it's a law, Joanna. You might even reference the law, say,
Yeah, it's an RSA.
it's an RSA.
So cite RSA instead of,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you want me to find it, I can, but it's in the land use law book.
okay.
This town
It's fairly
did
new.
it, this town did amend and adopt before the state, but then the state followed up with an RSA.
Okay.
So it is in the zoning ordinance.
It is,
What was that on?
Well, then it's not,
The expiration.
But you have
Oh,
2
the
years,
expiration.
otherwise your variance or special exceptions
We do, yeah, I remember reading that.
expire.
Yeah, it's in the zoning ordinance.
It's definitely a law.
labeled exactly.
That could be because I do remember reading it.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I presented it to you guys as there was some things that needed to change, but we're gonna just cite it as law, as
Yeah.
RSA instead of ZO.
It trumps it, so I think that's fine.
Sure.
I had one other thing having to do with the road, seeing there was such a big discussion tonight. And I don't know if the town is liable if the ZBA or the planning board approves something that violates people's right-of-way or violates a deed restriction. Could we
Probably.
be liable for a civil suit?
Not personally, the town's
But the
insurance
town
would
could do
cover us, but
But I-
we should be careful.
I wonder, especially once again on these private roads, whether we should request information about abutters' right-of-ways. Because that might not be clear on their deed, but if the abutters have right-of-ways and we approve something that they
Well,
lose it, we
Really
could
on
be
the
sued.
applicant.
right. I noticed the lawyer for the lady did not present anything out of her deed that showed right away, so I would have to say.
I know that was on
Well,
all the
I-
original deeds, including the
Nobody
right-of-way.
presented anything that showed a right away.
Terry, all the original deeds in White's Grove, and probably the other, like, properties too, included rights of way over White's Grove Road to their home.
Right, White's Grove Road.
If they
not
didn't have a
Shore Road.
right-of-way,
Well, Shore
nobody
Road
would
was the
finance it.
existing
Terry.
road when those
Yeah.
right-of-ways were
If
added.
there wasn't a right-of-way, the banks wouldn't finance them.
Right.
They'd just say, eh.
Last thing was the meeting procedures. Number 9, the case is taken under advisement immediately and voted on unless the board chooses to do so at a later time.
Take
Do
it
you
out.
want to keep that one in?
No.
You
Because
guys
we could decide to postpone it, we could decide to,
still leave it as that language says.
no, I'd just cross it off.
I take it out, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of confusing.
And I have a
What part
question
are
too
we
about,
crossing off, Joanna?
Number 9, meeting procedures.
if I could jump,
First page, flip side.
if I could jump back to under Article 5, Administration and Enforcement, Section C.3 of the
Why,
line,
why are we taking that out, number 9?
because it's not really true.
That's definitely true.
Don't we have to act on it within 30 days?
Yeah, I guess,
Or we could put, or we could say, but within 30 days. But that's, I think number 9 should stay.
it should say
because-
is usually taken under advisement immediately and voted on. Immediately, is what they're getting at.
I would just say, but within 30 days. That would be the only caveat, because we don't have to vote tonight.
It has to be within 60 days, doesn't it?
30.
Well, 60 on the, I think
Decision
the
on-
overall thing is 60 maybe.
Unless agreed upon by the applicant, like it is in this case.
Right.
I have a question on, under Article 5, Administration and Enforcement, Section C.3. All work proposed in the approval letters of shall be completed, that's like some kind of typo in there, of the Nottingham's, Administration and Enforcement of the Nottingham zoning ordinance. All work, that's like a run-together sentence, all work proposed in the approval letters of shall be completed within 2 years. Failure to complete that work shall be null and void,
It just says, you should
unless
just
a
get rid of the
later
word
date was
of.
specified in the approval letter.
Just get rid of the word of.
Okay.
No, but failure to complete that work shall be null and void. It's not the failure to complete the work that's null and void, it's the approval, it's the special exception or the
Right,
variance.
right.
The
That-
work, I just think that needs to be reworded. Failure to complete the work shall render
Yes.
the
because they
special
shall
exception or
result.
variance null and void. Failure to complete the work within 2 years.
Do they have to, I don't know,
Repeat it.
I think they have to start within 2 years. I don't think they have to
Well,
finish.
you know
I
what?
think they have
If
to have
she's-
significant work done.
Bonnie, if she's gonna go by the RSA, then she needs to stay at the RSA.
You want me to
Words.
just copy and paste the RSA?
I would do that,
Yeah.
That's easier.
much easier for you.
And
then,
totally
because you
accurate.
you can't put in your own wording for, if you're referencing the RSA, you'd have to put what the RSA is.
That's
Okay.
probably cleaner.
Illegal.
Okay, and we don't need to vote, or do we want to vote to approve the new variance applications?
Well, probably
We might as well vote.
cleaner to vote.
Here we are.
We have a full board.
I move that we approve the applications as amended tonight, the applications for variance and special exception.
Second.
Does this cover both? Yes. All those in favor?
What are you practicing?
I was just gonna say.
She's
I'm
taking right
tired.
I
over
am
there.
tired.
It's with past your bedtime.
You seconded? And what just happened?
We're gonna vote now.
We're gonna vote.
Bonnie was running
All
the
in
meeting.
favor?
I made a motion to approve the application as amended.
Your mom seconded. All in favor? 5-0.
And did you say that these are for special exceptions as well? Is that what I just?
That was my question, because I don't see it on here in big letters.
So is it just for variance?
'Cause it should be pretty similar, shouldn't it?
So it says variance request there.
Yeah.
Right, that's
So
all
we
I'm
can-
seeing.
We haven't had special exceptions in forever.
We used to have them all the
That'll
time.
jinx us.
Is that?
That'll jinx us.
Yeah.
Well, it says on here if you are seeking a variance, which means this is, the application is for something more than just variances.
So I think that the checklist portion is for, variant, for both, but it's the application portion that is for just the variance.
Right, the 5 criteria.
Yeah, and I can work, after our new buildings start to get settled, I can work on.
I think there are 5 criteria for a special exception as well. They're just a little different.
Yeah, so we'll look at
I
that.
think there's not hardship, there's something else.
This was based on, I think you guys gave me new markets.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other question I had is the very last page.
Yep.
That's pretty much, that's what we had before, and it's pretty much all restated in the new checklist. Can I nix the last page now?
Tell me what's on the page, because mine are all mixed up.
Bonnie, this,
It's this thin,
I don't-
it's this little writing on the left.
I don't have it.
Yes, you
Oh,
do.
yes.
It's on the back.
Yeah.
I thought that was the first page.
No, that's the first page. Here, it's in here.
So it says, the Nottingham zoning board strongly recommends that before making any appeal, you become familiar with the zoning ordinance, and then it's the New Hampshire law and application procedure for zoning board of adjustment hearing. I made sure that everything was captured in the checklist before.
Good.
I just wanted you guys to say, yes, go ahead and nix our old one. Yes, go ahead and nix our old one.
Which is this last page?
That
Yes.
one.
Yeah, that was the.
Just making
the
sure we
old
know that.
checklist.
Yes.
Okay. You all agree?
Yep.
All right.
Make life easier, not harder.
All right, and you guys approved that, all right. I will be, hopefully, depending on how tomorrow goes in the office,
Do you,
sending you guys, the material, or posting the material for one case. The other case hopefully will be on my desk tomorrow morning.
do you want us,
Not by Monday morning.
do you want us to leave our stuff in from this case in this book, so you don't have to reprint all this?
That would be helpful, but you're gonna get hopefully some.
Right, we're gonna get additional stuff, but we could leave what we have in there.
Yes, that would be very helpful, and I don't have to print.
Yeah, then, and then, like the lawyers, the guy that added more stuff.
And, oh, and the letter that he presented you guys with the fire department's,
Saw that before,
comments.
the last time, right?
Yes, no, you saw that.
Did I see
We
it?
saw that on
The
joint
original
meeting
night.
With the planning board.
We saw it on the first guy.
Yeah, on Shore Road and Moore's Road, we saw this.
Right.
Oh,
That's-
that's right, that's what it was,
Yeah,
yes.
Yep.
we saw
Yeah,
it
we
on
saw
the
it that
first case
first
we
night.
did, yeah.
Yeah, because that was on the basis of the select board needing to see, cases for, construction on fire roads. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you had seen it, yeah, okay.
But it's good to have that.
Yeah, I didn't think that that needed to be applied to this case, and now I understand it
It's
does.
be applied to everything down there,
Yeah.
especially if roads come up, which they often do.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else, or can we adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Do any, you don't have anything else you need us for, right?
No.
Okay.